I'm wondering, as an example I use with my clients, and it's an example because it works when you're trying to break into companies. So you walk into an organization, it's a USB drive sitting on a driveway, or on a coffee table, or it's sitting someplace, or you go to a conference and you're given a pile of USB drives. How many people here would put it in their computer? Very few, right? So in the old days, let's call it 3 years ago, everybody would put their hands up. It was like the best freebie. And the reason is we don't trust the ecosystem in which we're plugging the device in. So we're describing a scenario where there are hundreds of thousands of applications with a trust chain that perhaps we don't trust. So how do we function in this environment? So Patrick, I think you have probably a perception, a bit of perception with the students you teach and with the technology and the research that you do. Maybe you can speak to how does one operate in this?
Sure. So let me give you one quick example that actually came out this week that's very useful to concretize this problem. I was at a conference in Raleigh. It's called CCS. There's a great paper, and they take a huge number of mobile apps that use SSL. Okay? So SSL, TLS, great, good start. We're encrypting. And they say, how well do they do it? Shocking number of them don't take the basic step to check, is this the right certificate that I should be using? So when I get the certificate in, that's how I get the key, the public key it's supposed to use. These applications just say, I have a certificate. Thank you. And begin to speak through that certificate. It doesn't matter if it's the bank, it doesn't matter if it's the attacker. So it's not enough to ask simple questions like, as you started off with, am I secure? I mean, do we use TLS? You actually have to ask deeper questions. Well, how are we using this? What are we hoping to achieve by this? What do our internal tests look like? And how many people inside the team have actually looked at how this thing works? I mean, Chris makes a great point that if we are constantly on the cycle of first we're going to get it out there, and then we're going to secure it. Well, version 2 is typically due out before version 1 of security.
Security was step 3. You got to make it go fast.
Okay. So, getting to step 3 just doesn't happen because version 2 comes along and it has to be faster and more featured. So you need to be, when you do these audits internally, it can't be just as simple as, well, are we buying the best mobile firewall or VPN, or are we using SSL? Or what the heck are we doing with it? These are the real challenges.
There's another ecosystem problem that's been introduced that's more of almost a social dynamic, and that is around sort of the mobile developer, not to harp on the developers too much, but the mobile developer community. And there's almost a generation gap that's happened, meaning that I come from, I don't know what this, for original technology I developed on and worked on. But I've seen the evolutions of where do we start and how do we get here, and I've learned those lessons over time. Majority of people that are doing mobile app development got out of school 2 or 3 years ago. They hit the market at the right time to jump on this bandwagon to go build a mobile app and have a lot of fun in this ecosystem. And that's awesome. And it's great for them and it's great for the economy. But these lessons learned over time of what's the right thing to do and common, simple practice has been lost. I don't know how else to say that, but that's definitely a sense in talking with mobile development security experts.
So we've been speaking about the applications and the app stores we're all familiar with. We all go into them, and in our conversation we had earlier, we were talking about let's call it an observation because it's certainly not a study. And then when you were to look at your phone right now, how many people would have updates pending for your apps? And I mean, I think one point a security guy looked at mine. I had 54. And he goes, "You're the worst security person I've ever seen." And I said, no. I don't update because the UI changes, the privacy policies get adjusted, the ads get adjusted. I use an iPhone, and so the new version of iOS 6 adds a little bit of tracking to it that you can easily disable. But in a mobile device, I think the population is generally getting used to the idea that an update is not critical, and it is not imperative to the functioning of the application. And in fact, it might disable functions. So so if you use shared authentication on some of these devices, if you upgrade, it adds the new authentication mechanism, which is more secure, but it requires you to set all your passwords all over again. So I think it's interesting. We're going to see a trend in our users of these devices not managing them. So who is in charge of managing these devices at the corporate level? I'd like to hear that.
So you have many things that you're trying to manage. I think Chris, when he talked about layered and taking a systematic view of mobile security, so you have to manage your applications. Some organizations want the same level of visibility they've had around laptop, desktop, and server, so they want to manage the device. And you have to manage the users also. So risky user behavior, accessing it from an untrusted cafe Wi-Fi connection, which might be just the person sitting across from you having their own access point. All of that needs to, so you're going to have to manage multiple elements. Now to manage the device, of course, the corporation can either employ a managed service to manage that device or have administrators to manage specific updates, make sure it's compliant, make sure it's not jailbroken, make sure the sandbox is intact, all of those things. From an app management perspective, you can do there's various techniques, whitelisting of applications or making sure that the untrusted applications are not installed, malicious ones that almost every day new malicious apps are on there, so maintaining that can become, and then from an access standpoint, right, even if you're managing the application, you're managing the devices, you want to make sure that when you're authenticating the user, you're not only just authenticating the user, but the user with that device, because you want to make that association.
So I think I appreciate the answer. So I would like you to start thinking about the questions you'll ask. So if you'll work it on the mic. In the middle, yeah. Let's see, if you have a question you want to ask the panelists, let's come up in the middle, and then we'll get those questions started. So while we're answering the last video, we got two guys ready to go. Please just kind of come up here and ask more questions. I've had a few that came through Twitter that I've been asking, so we've been kind of slyly slipping those in. So gentlemen, please.
I'd like to try and address your question about who's managing that.
Please.
And I think enterprises are struggling with that, quite honestly. I think there's multiple groups involved. There's traditional IT and telecom, but more and more you're getting the CSO office or the CTO offices involved. And they're really struggling with how to manage. Do I manage the device or do I manage the data? Do I put it in a secure container and let them do whatever they want on the device? Or do I lock down the device and restrict what they can put on it so that they can avoid those malicious applications? And I don't think that anyone's really truly figured it out, because it really depends on what data they're trying to give access and who they're trying to give it to and how that person is accessing it. So there's a combination of device management and container application management. And I think what you're going to see is a mix of those coming down the line as corporations figure it out. And it'll probably be different for different users within the organization.
I do like the idea of tiering it for the different users. That's an interesting concept.
Yeah, I just had a quick data point around the versioning, and at the risk of mentioning my product, I'm going to do it anyways. We introduced a feature actually for developers to manage test dev life cycles to make sure the testers are on the latest version. So it's just version control. If you're not on the latest version, then it forces you to upgrade. One of the highest reasons the enterprise comes on, as far as one of the top features that an enterprise comes on in the deployment of the production apps, is to force their users to upgrade their enterprise apps. And what we're coming to find out is the reason is the number that we usually get is somewhere between 65 and 70% of the releases that they have are for security reasons. They've changed the authentication policy. They've changed the approach to verify the SSL cert. They've changed something. They want everybody using that latest, most secure version. And the trend is people don't upgrade, not until they have to, and they want that feature. But that's not the mindset of the enterprise. I put that fix in there for a reason. I need you to upgrade as quickly as possible.
That's a good point. All right, so This is where the audience participation gets to happen. Anybody have any question? Yes, sir, please.
We are doing this bring your own device all over the place and all the corporate and Indian concern. Can you kind of elaborate on those areas for the implication of security side?
Implications of BYOD on security? I think,
By all
Bob,
means.
you love that term, don't you? To me, BYOD is as much economically driven by enterprises as anything, because they're trying to figure out how to control the costs of all these devices and the constant upgrade, and also from an end user satisfaction. Employees don't like to carry two devices, and so they want to bring their own. And so that's where container solutions are coming into play. An employee can bring their device, they can have the personal side of it, but the corporation can deploy a secure container that locks down the applications and the corporate sensitive information and keeps it in there. And then if that employee leaves, they can wipe the container without touching the personal side. So it's the same type of security implications, but it tends to be focused more on securing a workspace on the device and managing the data instead of managing the entire device.
So I'm curious, is it economically beneficial to the company to do BYOD?
Long term, no.
Long term, no. Anybody else want to add yes? No? There's a no? Yes?
I would not say definitely yes at this time.
So
It's a maybe.
I got a maybe.
Probably leaning no.
So I got maybe, no, maybe is no? No? Patrick? We'll see. Ooh. And we're split more to the negative side. All right, who else has a question here? All right, so I have a question. So, yes, sir.
Let's talk about another network. How about our power grid that goes wireless? What do you see as some of the big security concerns about the smart grid?
Well, my immediate reaction to that, I don't know a whole lot about that, but I would actually say, God, I hope so, would give them a chance to upgrade and improve their security. Because what they have now it isn't secure. So it's not to say that a wireless idea of that is the most secure, but it's got to be far more secure than what it has today.
So there are, I think, a number of concerns when it comes to smart grid and wireless. And the first is that this smart meter that some of us already have attached to their house, it backhauls, it talks back to the network over a cellular connection. So there's your first concern. So depending on the technology, the network may or may not be a concern. The second is the smart grid itself. Most people don't realize that this is old technology. The big problem is you can't just throw encryption at it because the machines that are working in the system just don't have the horsepower to do any encryption, even bad encryption. So, the smart grid, or the grid probably needs a full upgrade before we really start to have a real conversation about security in any context.
And so the smart grid is interesting in that when we look at it from security space, we see it as kind of evolving the way, kind of similar patterns of other technologies, mainframes and desktops, mobile devices, and the smart grid, where there's awareness coming out and how they're interacting it. And we're also seeing that in other similar devices. So we have a question.